go. A documentary that screened recently at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival is a
Yeah,
film.
it's evening time here, but sorry, I was interrupting you there.
Yep, it's a film called In the Shadow of Beirut. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking from Ireland to the director of the film, Stephen Gerard Kelly, who directed the film with Gary Keane. Stephen, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thanks very much for having me on, Peter. It's great. It's great to be here, and thank you for taking the time to both watch the film and then to talk to me. It's much
Pleasure.
appreciated.
This is such a revealing documentary about the difficulties that people living in Beirut have after that huge explosion and after other events. How did the documentary first come about?
I moved to Beirut in 2015, following my partner at the time who found work there, and then Um, yeah, basically, I was given not quite an ultimatum, but more like, would you like to move with me or not? And if not, then maybe, it's better off that we finish what we had. So I decided to move with her and settled in Beirut then for the next 5 years full time. On arrival, I didn't have any Arabic. I didn't know the city that well, so I bought a bicycle and I started to explore the city. And one of the days, after a few weeks of riding around each day, I rode into Sabra and found the vegetable market there, and then struck up a friendship with one of the vegetable sellers there who was standing on the side of the street on a wooden, like a stall with wheels on it, selling onions. And he invited me back to his mother's house, who was an elderly Palestinian woman in her 70s. And then over the next few days and weeks and months, she and her family nearly took me in as an additional part of the family, and fed me and taught me their language. And then through that family, which had been in the neighborhood for 76 years, since 1948, they I got to know the rest of the community in Shatila and in Sabra really well over the next like five years. And then I started to film at about the 3 year mark, when I had a decent command of the language, because nobody in the film speaks English, and the language of the area was Arabic. So I people were patient enough with me to teach me Arabic, and then I started to film around the 3 year mark. Typically at the start, just people would ask me to film a birthday party or a wedding. And then it started to go into more like, can you film a leak in my roof? Or maybe the police have come and they're knocking down the wall of my house because I don't have I don't have permission from the government to build a wall in that place. But then some people don't have papers or official documents to apply for permission. So police were coming to get bribes, and then they would ask me, "Hey, can you film this, or can you document that?" And then it started to grow from about the 3 year mark up until, for the next 4 years. Then um, from 20 that started in 2018 and until 2022, like filming. Yeah.
And how easy was it for you and for them to talk to camera and to talk about their experiences and their life?
Sure, it wasn't difficult at all. Um, there there came a point with, like, of the, say, 10 families that I was filming with for years, there there came a point and a deep level of trust both ways, um, that people would open up to me, and some people in the film said to me that I'm like a therapist, or like I know more about the family than people in the family know, because I'm there, and um, I was there so much, and people got to know me so well that there was really there was always like ownership on people's side over, whether the camera was on or off. Sometimes I wouldn't feel like turning on the camera. I'd be tired, or I would, it like, I may have taken the choice that it wasn't appropriate to film, but then somebody in front of the camera would say to me, Steve, are you filming this? It's important. And other times I'd be filming something, and then a person in front of the camera would say, Steve, can you please turn off the camera? And I say, sure. Or if you film that, please don't use it in the film. So there was ownership and collaboration, because I didn't set out to make a film, it sort of accidentally, I came to the realization myself accidentally. Um, Certainly the team that came on board from Lebanon and Ireland with a wealth of knowledge and experience didn't come into it by an accident. They saw the footage, and I told them the stories, and everybody was very supportive and enthusiastic, and believed that a really powerful film could be made from the hundreds of hours of footage that I'd accumulated organically over the years. And so me talking with people on camera, or people in front of camera, maybe sometimes, it was such a natural, organic thing that it wasn't like there was a camera crew arriving going, okay, we're going to film you now. Um, like somebody new. It was like just me working solo with my camera and some sound equipment, and just going about each day as a human first and as a filmmaker second. Um, yeah.
Yeah. How interesting and how well done it was. Um, I mean, Beirut and the suburbs that you're in, quite devastating. We see the outcomes of so much devastation that's happened in that area. Did you have any issues at all filming politically, or were there any government issues or whatever that hampered your attempts to film?
Not at all. No, during filming, it was very much just me with friends filming, people in their own homes, or going about their daily lives in the street. Sometimes you might have somebody that would say something to you, Steve, there you are with your camera again, or um, maybe somebody new would come into the area, somebody with influence, and maybe would see me with the camera and would ask, who's that? But then often the locals would step in and vouch for me and explain who I was. Like, that's Steve. He's been here for years. He's a son of the neighborhood, Huwa Ibn al Manta, which means like he's as good as from here, and you can trust him. So it was a very um, sort of natural way in how I moved. And I could also, given the sectarian nature of the communities within Lebanon, there's there can be a lot of suspicion or prejudice towards another sect or another community. But because I didn't really fit into a box, yes, I was a foreigner, but I still, I was spending most of my time with people who were of the Sunni and Shiite faith groups. Um, so people were sort of, after years and years of me being there, people trusted me. the government, because it's not a political film, I wasn't ever out to find a culprit or find find a villain. It was more just out of showing how other people's children really are living and having to really struggle, and trying to, like, my overall goal was to create more empathy and compassion among everybody, um to try and contribute in a positive way, however small that is with a film and with a documentary film. But that was my overarching goal. Yeah.
Okay. And was there Irish money or other money behind you to be able to make this film?
Yeah, so for most of the filming, like for my entire time living in Beirut full time, I didn't have any funding. I didn't look for funding. I didn't get paid a cent for anything that I'd filmed for the film, for the future film. But then when I left Lebanon and showed the footage to people, then producers like Brendan Byrne, Miriam Sassine came on board and really helped to fund it, to pay uh, a really great team, editors, sound designers, mixers, composers, colorists, pay for music rights, like the whole thing. And how that was covered was by funding from Screen Ireland, which I'm very grateful for, and also funding from ZDF and Arte, and then a much smaller amount of funding from Hidden Light in the US. So it was Irish, German, French, and US money that helped to make the film a reality, and I'm very grateful to everybody in the credits who helped.
Well done on all that and getting that funding later on after the filming. So you've already mentioned that you did lots of shooting, lots of footage, etc. And of course, the construction of the story and the editing process is always the more difficult part of making a documentary. Tell me about that process and what you had to leave out as well as leave in the final version.
Sure. A huge amount of credit and a big round of applause has to go to Isolt Howlett and Zaina Abul Hassan, who are two really great women editors, one from Ireland and one from Lebanon. And between the two of them, they worked incredibly well together in laying out the sort of a rough cut, for which then, laid the foundation of like what ultimately turned into a, a film around four families. But at the start, there were up to 10 families in the mix that every family was looked at. One of the families asked not to have the footage used because their situation had changed, and um, it would they just didn't feel as comfortable with it, so we removed that family. Another family we removed from the edit because it would have put the father at risk of arrest for some minor criminality, and it was coming from him trying to provide for his family. But we removed him because we didn't want for him to be in trouble with the law, because as Aboudi says in the film, if the father gets in trouble, then it's the son or it's the children who are going to have to pay the price. Bitfa al Timan means, like, he'll pay for it,
Yeah.
and so, and then, we had 7 or 8 families, but we just continued to look at the edit, and and sort of what themes worked together within it. Honestly, we could have made 2, 3 films from the material and from the different storylines, but we together as a team and talking to the families, we you know we sort of all spoke together about who felt comfortable with what and who was what made the strongest story as well, the strongest film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well done on that. And yes, I fully understand the that process. Now, it's interesting to note that Ireland submitted in the shadow of Beirut to the Oscars and to the documentary section and the international film section, which is really great kudos to you.
Yeah, the film won an award at Doc Edge last year in 2023, which qualified. It's an Academy Award qualifying festival. So from that best feature award at Doc Edge, from that recognition, it automatically got into the best feature documentary category. Then later on in the year, Ireland then selected it as the official submission for the Oscars, which then meant it went into the um, best international feature category. So it was in a very unusual position of being in 2 categories for best film. Um, and again, that's down that's down to judges in both Doc Edge and also judges in Ireland, including Jim Sheridan, who I've admired since a child for his work on My Left Foot with Daniel Day-Lewis and countless other films that he's directed. So to have that sort of validation from incredibly talented, experienced people in the film world was both a surprise, but also greatly appreciated. It being my first film.
Mm.
I thought that if my mother could see this, I'd be happy. That's essentially who I was making it for, was for my family or friends just to see where I'd been, and then it's sort of the film has had success, which has surpassed certainly my expectations.
Yes. And I noticed that co-director of the film is Gary Keane. How does he fit into this?
Yeah, um, I approached Gary sort of in my final year in Lebanon because I'd seen a film that he'd co-directed called Gaza, which premiered at Sundance. It was an Irish team that were involved in it. Like it was an Irish Palestinian team, and I reached out to Gary, and he picked up the phone as soon as I called his cell phone, and we spoke for an hour the first time. I told him what I was up to. I we said we'd be in touch. Then maybe 6 months after that, I reached out to him again, and at that time I shared a bit of footage with him. He looked at it and he goes, "Look, I think it's time you talk to other people because this is looking like it could really be a great film." Um, and Gary came on board sort of when financing came in place from Screen Ireland. And what he brought to it was he came to Beirut with me for 2 different filming trips to fill in the holes in the edit, in the narrative. It became apparent that even though I knew the stories intimately and everything that happened around the camera being turned on, when it came to the edit, we needed to go back and get some sound bites. We needed to go back and get a few lines to explain how one part of somebody's life, a part of somebody's life moved to another part. And Gary came in with his sound equipment and a really great attitude, and just immediately, despite my trepidation at like suddenly having somebody else with me when I had only ever moved in Sabra and Shatila alone, um, always with people from the area, but never with an outsider. And but Gary came in, and despite not having a word of Arabic, uh, just people really liked him and welcomed him into their homes as they would with anybody who I brought in. And Gary brought a really, really good skill set of storytelling, and with decades of experience of making documentaries, breaking down quite complex scenes and stories into more structured beats and scenes that like we would move around and make the film work really. And that's where I'm forever grateful to him for that, um all that he gave the film, and his incredible skill at storytelling and directing, which I learned a lot from.
Yes, yes. No, it all works really very well. I'm just wondering, has the film screened in Beirut, especially to the families that were in the final cut of the film?
Great question. We the film came out in June last year, and then we had scheduled in the end of October for a trip to Beirut. We had booked a theater, and we were looking forward to having a big celebration of the people in the film. But then the violence happened at the beginning of October, and then our Lebanese production partners and team have advised us to wait until the violence in the south and in Palestine ends before we come back. And so we're waiting for that day. Each family is aware of their individual stories, but um, nobody in Sabra or Shatila has seen the entire film. Um, Although I say that very quickly, people from Sabra and Shatila have seen the film overseas in different festivals. Um, but none of the key people in the film have seen it. Yeah.
Ah, okay, interesting to hear. I gather the film will be rolled out apart from film festivals in other ways and will be available on streaming services or whatever.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah, yeah. We're looking towards the end of the year for a video on demand, some sort of release at the end of the year. And it'll continue to play in festivals. It just played at Greenpoint Film Festival yesterday. It has a few other festivals coming up. Like it continues to be accepted into different festivals. We just got an acceptance there into one in Tunisia, and there are others coming up as well. So yeah, it's exciting. It's a lot of work
Yeah,
still to sort of parent it, but in the world of independent filmmaking, and especially documentary films, because of the sizes of the team and the budgets involved, the low budgets involved, it means that a lot of the team can't continue to devote time to caring for it. And it sort of, I think I'm the one person in the team haven't been most having been most involved in it for so long, just is the one who's continuing to parent it. And it'll, yeah, the we have a good distributor who we've signed with, and they are preparing the film for a video release with universities and institutions in the US, and then the streaming side of things will be sort of maybe early December is the
yeah,
expectation, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah.
yes. I know the film did very well at the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival, so well done on that. So, Stephen, I'm quite intrigued. Are you working on another film at the moment?
I am Peter. I'm working on a few more films, both as director, of which I'm developing three films, and then I'm also filming as a director of photography for other um, directors, both in narrative and documentary. So the three films that I'm directing and developing myself are all documentaries,
Hmm.
but I'm being director of photography or a cinematographer for um some documentaries and a narrative. So yeah, there's a nice mix. It's a lot of work, but the new documentaries I'm really they're all advancing and taking shape. So yeah,
Excellent.
hopefully.
Looking forward to seeing them. It's sounds great.
Yeah, thanks.
And just to conclude, do you have a particular film or filmmaker or documentary style that you are particularly fond of?
Sh- I am. I am. I mean, the style that I'm particularly fond of is verite documentary filmmaking. So it's influencing as little as possible what's happening in front of the camera and really finding the beauty in the compositions and the understanding of light and the story, and connecting with people. Documentary films that inspire me. I was only asking a friend of mine the other day to send me on a name of an old film that he had sent to me. There's there's a film called The Other Side by an Italian director, which is really great. Um, it was so good. I'm just pulling it up here. The Other Side from Roberto Minervini. Incredible. And then Bombay Beach is another great documentary. Virunga, about the gorillas